Question 1. A medical device manufacturer transitioning to ISO 13485-2016 is reviewing its quality data, including customer complaints, internal audit findings, and process monitoring results from the past 2 years. The objective is to proactively identify potential quality issues and ensure compliance with evolving regulatory expectations, such as those from the FDA's 21 CFR Part 820. Analysis of the data reveals a slight, but consistent, upward trend in the number of minor functional deviations reported for a specific class of implantable devices, although each instance remains within the defined acceptance criteria. Which of the following approaches would be most effective in systematically identifying and addressing this subtle, yet potentially significant, trend to prevent future escalations and maintain product safety and effectiveness? Option A. Increasing the frequency of visual inspection of finished implantable devices without correlating it to specific process parameters. Option B. Implementing statistical process control, SPC, charting for key performance indicators related to the implantable device's functional parameters and failure modes. Option C. Relying solely on the reactive complaint handling process to address deviations as they are reported by customers. Option D. Conducting a one-time, in-depth root cause analysis for each reported minor functional deviation to understand individual occurrences. Correct answer is B. Implementing statistical process control, SPC, charting for key performance indicators related to the implantable device's functional parameters and failure modes. Explanation. The transition to ISO 13485-2016 mandates a proactive approach to quality management, emphasizing the identification and analysis of trends in product and process performance. This is crucial for ensuring the continued safety and effectiveness of medical devices and for meeting regulatory expectations, such as those outlined by the FDA's Quality System Regulation, 21 CFR Part 820, and the EU Medical Device Regulation, MDR. Trend analysis as required by Clause 8. 2. 1. Monitoring and measurement of processes, and Clause 8. 5. 1. Control of nonconforming product involves systematically evaluating data collected from various sources, including complaint data, nonconforming product reports, internal audit findings, and supplier performance. The goal is to identify statistically significant changes or patterns that could indicate a degradation in quality or a potential future risk. For instance, an increasing frequency of a specific type of complaint, even if each individual complaint is resolved, signals a trend that warrants investigation and corrective action. Similarly, a gradual increase in process variation, even if still within specification limits, might indicate an impending issue. The most effective method for identifying these subtle shifts and patterns, especially when dealing with multiple data points over time, is statistical process control (SPC) techniques. SPC tools like control charts, e.g., X-bar and R charts, P charts, C charts, are specifically designed to differentiate between common cause variation, inherent to the process, and special cause variation, assignable to specific events or factors. By plotting data points over time and comparing them against statistically derived control limits, organizations can visually detect trends, shifts, and out-of-control conditions. This allows for timely intervention before nonconformities become widespread or critical. Therefore, the application of SPC techniques to monitor key performance indicators derived from quality data is the most robust approach to trend analysis in the context of ISO 13485-2016 transition. Question 2. When transitioning a quality management system to ISO 13485-2016, an organization developing a Class Roman II implantable medical device must critically reevaluate its product realization planning. Considering the heightened emphasis on lifecycle risk management and the need for robust validation processes, which of the following represents the most comprehensive and compliant approach to planning the realization of this device, aligning with the updated standard and anticipating regulatory expectations, such as those in the EU MDR? Option A. Prioritize the establishment of a comprehensive complaint handling system and post-market surveillance plan, as these are the primary drivers for product realization improvements under the 2016 standard, with planning for design and manufacturing being secondary. Option B. Develop a detailed product realization plan that includes only the critical process parameters for manufacturing and a basic risk assessment for potential production failures, without specific emphasis on software validation or environmental controls. Option C. Focus primarily on design and development verification and validation activities, ensuring that all manufacturing processes are documented and deferring detailed risk assessment to the post-market surveillance phase. Option D. Integrate risk management activities throughout all stages of product realization planning, explicitly defining verification and validation strategies, and documenting the necessary work environment controls and software validation plans from the initial planning phase. The correct answer is D. Integrate risk management activities throughout all stages of product realization planning, explicitly defining verification and validation strategies, and documenting the necessary work environment controls and software validation plans from the initial planning phase. Explanation. The transition from ISO 13485-2003 to ISO 13485-2016 introduced several key changes, particularly concerning product realization. One significant area of emphasis in the 2016 version is the increased focus on risk management throughout the entire product lifecycle, not just during design and development. This aligns with regulatory expectations, such as those from the European Union's Medical Device Regulation, MDR, which also mandates a robust risk management process. Specifically, ISO 13485-2016 Clause 7. 1. Planning of product realization requires the organization to determine and plan the processes needed for product realization. This includes determining the necessary steps for verification and validation, as well as for monitoring, measurement, inspection, and testing activities. Furthermore, the standard emphasizes the need to plan for the necessary infrastructure, including the work environment and contamination control, especially for sterile medical devices. The integration of risk management principles into these planning activities ensures that potential hazards are identified and mitigated from the outset. The 2016 revision also clarifies requirements for software validation, ensuring that any software used in the quality management system or as part of the medical device itself is appropriately validated. The emphasis on documented information for design and development outputs, including verification and validation results, is also a critical aspect of product realization planning under the updated standard. Question 3. A medical device manufacturer is preparing for its scheduled annual management review. The executive team needs to understand the essential outcomes expected from this review according to ISO 13485-2016. Considering the inputs such as audit findings, customer complaints, and process performance data, which of the following best represents the mandated outputs of this crucial quality management system evaluation? Option A. Identification of improvement opportunities for the quality management system and its processes, along with decisions and actions to implement these improvements. Option B. A detailed report outlining the projected revenue growth for the next fiscal quarter and a strategic plan for market expansion into emerging economies. Option C. The complete reallocation of resources across all departments to enhance operational efficiency and a finalized schedule for all upcoming external regulatory audits. Option D. Formal approval of all updated design specifications for newly released medical devices and the establishment of a comprehensive risk management strategy for the entire product portfolio. Correct answer is A. Identification of improvement opportunities for the quality management system and its processes, along with decisions and actions to implement these improvements. Explanation. The management review process in ISO 13485-2016 is a critical element for ensuring the continued suitability, adequacy, and effectiveness of the quality management system. This review is not merely a procedural step, but a strategic assessment that requires input from various organizational functions. Key inputs, as stipulated by Clause 5. 6. 2 of the standard include information on the performance of the quality management system, such as audit results, customer feedback, process performance and product conformity, status of preventive and corrective actions, and changes that could affect the quality management system. Furthermore, recommendations for improvement are also essential inputs. The outputs of the management review, as detailed in Clause 5. 6. 3. Must include decisions and actions related to the improvement of the quality management system, including product and process quality, and the need for changes to the quality management system itself. The standard emphasizes that the review should lead to concrete actions. Therefore, an output that directly addresses the effectiveness of the QMS and identifies specific improvement actions based on the gathered inputs is paramount. The other options are related to quality management, do not specifically encapsulate the required outputs of a management review as defined by the standard, such as the formal approval of new product designs or the detailed scheduling of all internal audits for the next fiscal year, which are not mandatory outputs of this specific process. Question 4. When implementing ISO 13485/2016 requirements for the storage and handling of labeled medical device products, what is the primary objective concerning product integrity and traceability, especially when managing diverse product lines with distinct labeling requirements? Option A. Expedite the process of picking and packing labeled product by having a centralized location for all product types, regardless of their specific storage needs. Option B. To ensure that labeled product remains identifiable, undamaged, and correctly segregated to prevent mix-ups and maintain traceability throughout its life cycle until shipment. Option C. To minimize the physical space required for storing labeled product by stacking items efficiently, thereby reducing warehousing costs. Option D. To focus solely on the visual appearance of the label, ensuring it is legible without significant consideration for the environmental conditions affecting the product itself. The correct answer is B. To ensure that labeled product remains identifiable, undamaged, and correctly segregated to prevent mix-ups and maintain traceability throughout its life cycle until shipment. Explanation. The core principle behind managing labeled product in ISO 13485/2016, particularly concerning storage and handling, is to ensure that the product remains identifiable and its intended use is not compromised. This involves maintaining the integrity of labeling throughout the product's life cycle until it reaches the customer. Clause 7.5.11 specifically addresses the control of product during processing, storage, packaging, and delivery. The requirement for preventing mix-ups and ensuring correct identification is paramount. When dealing with multiple product types or different versions of the same product, clear segregation and distinct labeling are essential. Proper storage conditions, such as controlled temperature and humidity, are also critical to prevent degradation that could affect the label's readability or the product's sterility, if applicable. The organization must have documented procedures that define how labeled product is handled to prevent damage, contamination, or misidentification. This includes provisions for inspecting stored product for any signs of deterioration or label damage. The objective is to maintain the product's status as labeled product in a way that supports traceability and compliance with regulatory requirements, such as those mandated by bodies like the FDA for the U.S. market or equivalent authorities in other regions. The transition to ISO 13485/2016 emphasizes a risk-based approach, meaning that the controls implemented for storage and handling should be proportionate to the risks associated with incorrect storage or mishandling of the specific medical device. This includes considering the potential harm to patients or users if a mislabeled or damaged product is released. Question 5. Consider a scenario where a manufacturer of an implantable cardiac defibrillator detects a trend indicating a potential for premature battery depletion in a specific lot, which could lead to a loss of therapy. This situation necessitates a proactive response to mitigate patient risk. According to ISO 13485/2016, what is the primary objective when implementing a field safety corrective action, FSCA, in such a case, particularly in alignment with regulatory expectations for patient safety? Option A. To document the trend internally and await further adverse event reports before deciding on any external communication or corrective action, prioritizing minimal disruption to sales. Option B. To systematically identify the root cause of the premature battery depletion. Implement immediate containment measures to prevent further distribution of affected devices, and communicate the necessary corrective actions to healthcare providers and patients to safeguard against potential harm. Option C. To focus solely on updating the device's software to prevent future occurrences of battery issues, without needing to recall or alert users about existing potentially affected devices. Option D. To initiate a full product recall of all manufactured units, regardless of their distribution status or the actual likelihood of failure, to completely eliminate any residual risk. The correct answer is B. To systematically identify the root cause of the premature battery depletion, implement immediate containment measures to prevent further distribution of affected devices, and communicate the necessary corrective actions to healthcare providers and patients to safeguard against potential harm. Explanation: the transition to ISO 13485/2016 introduced specific requirements for managing field safety corrective actions, FSCA. Clause 8.5.2, correction and preventive action, and Clause 8.5.3, contamination control are particularly relevant. The standard emphasizes the organization's responsibility to take action to eliminate the cause of nonconformities to prevent recurrence, and to address any adverse events or potential hazards identified post-market. This includes not only internal actions, but also communication with regulatory authorities and customers, as mandated by regulations such as the EU Medical Device Regulation, MDR, or similar national requirements. The core principle is to ensure that any identified risk associated with a medical device in the field is effectively managed through appropriate corrective and preventive actions, including FSCA. The decision to issue an FSCA is based on a risk assessment, considering the severity of the potential harm and the likelihood of its occurrence. The process involves identifying the root cause, implementing containment and corrective actions, verifying the effectiveness of these actions, and documenting the entire process. The focus is on ensuring patient safety and device efficacy throughout the product lifecycle. The regulatory framework often dictates the reporting timelines and the specific information to be communicated to authorities and users when an FSCA is initiated. Question 6. Consider a medical device manufacturer transitioning to ISO 13485/2016. They have identified a recurring pattern of minor deviations during the final product inspection stage, as documented in internal audit reports and customer feedback logs. These deviations, while not leading to immediate product rejection, suggest a potential instability in the manufacturing process. According to the principles of analysis and improvement within ISO 13485/2016, what is the most appropriate initial step to address this identified trend to ensure QMS effectiveness and prevent future occurrences? Option A. Conduct a market surveillance review to ascertain if similar issues are being reported by competitors, informing a broader industry-wide improvement strategy. Option B. Increase the frequency of outgoing quality control checks without investigating the underlying causes of the deviations, relying on detection rather than prevention. Option C. Update the quality manual to reflect a revised acceptable quality limit for the identified deviations, thereby formalizing the current inspection outcome. Option D. Initiate a formal root cause analysis for the observed deviations to implement corrective actions and verify their effectiveness in preventing recurrence. Correct answer is D. Initiate a formal root cause analysis for the observed deviations to implement corrective actions and verify their effectiveness in preventing recurrence. Explanation: the transition to ISO 13485/2016 from earlier versions, particularly concerning the analysis and improvement clauses, mandates a robust approach to evaluating the effectiveness of the Quality Management System, QMS. Clause 8.5.2, corrective action, and Clause 8.5.3, preventive action are central to this. Corrective action is initiated when a nonconformity is detected, aiming to prevent recurrence by addressing the root cause. Preventive action, on the other hand, is proactive, seeking to identify potential nonconformities and their causes before they occur. The 2016 version emphasizes a more integrated approach, requiring organizations to analyze data from various sources, including monitoring and measurement, audits, and customer feedback, to identify trends and opportunities for improvement. The effectiveness of actions taken, both corrective and preventive, must be evaluated. This evaluation is a critical part of the management review process, Clause 9.3, and informs the overall improvement cycle. When considering the transition, a key aspect is ensuring that the organization's processes for identifying, documenting, and resolving nonconformities, as well as for implementing preventive measures, are aligned with the updated requirements. This includes the scope of data analysis to drive these actions and the verification of their effectiveness. For instance, If a trend of minor deviations in a sterilization process is identified through complaint data and internal audits, the organization must determine if this trend constitutes a potential nonconformity that warrants preventive action, or if it's a series of actual nonconformities requiring corrective action. The effectiveness of the chosen action, e.g., retraining personnel, modifying a process parameter, or updating work instructions, must then be verified. The core principle is to use the analysis of QMS performance to drive meaningful and effective improvements. Question 7. Consider a medical device manufacturer producing implantable devices intended for surgical insertion. The transition to ISO 13485, 2016 requires a comprehensive review of their contamination control procedures. Which of the following actions most directly addresses the enhanced requirements for preventing microbial contamination throughout the device lifecycle, as emphasized in the 2016 revision, particularly concerning sterile devices and the integration of risk management principles? Option A. Conducting an annual review of all sterilization validation reports and updating the standard operating procedure for cleanroom gowning to include additional personal protective equipment. Option B. Implementing a comprehensive environmental monitoring program with statistically valid sampling and testing frequencies for critical manufacturing areas, coupled with a documented risk-based approach to identify and mitigate potential microbial ingress points during assembly and packaging. Option C. Developing a new training module for all production personnel on basic aseptic techniques and updating the device history record template to include a checkbox for sterility confirmed. Option D. Expanding the supplier qualification process to include audits of raw material suppliers' sterilization capabilities and requiring certificates of analysis for all incoming sterile components. Correct answer is B. Implementing a comprehensive environmental monitoring program with statistically valid sampling and testing frequencies for critical manufacturing areas, coupled with a documented risk-based approach to identify and mitigate potential microbial ingress points during assembly and packaging. Explanation. The transition from ISO 13485, 2003 to ISO 13485, 2016 necessitated a re-evaluation of contamination control strategies, particularly for sterile medical devices and those requiring control of microbial contamination. Clause 7.5.1 of ISO 13485, 2016 Production and Service Provision specifically addresses the need to maintain product cleanliness and prevent contamination. For sterile medical devices, the standard requires controls to ensure that contamination is prevented throughout the manufacturing process, including packaging. This involves establishing and maintaining documented procedures for cleaning, sterilization, and aseptic processing. The 2016 revision placed a greater emphasis on risk management, requiring organizations to identify, assess, and control risks associated with contamination. This includes considering the entire life cycle of the device and the intended use environment. The validation of sterilization processes, as required by Clause 7.5.3, is a critical component of ensuring sterility and preventing contamination. Furthermore, Clause 7.5.1 explicitly requires the organization to determine and implement actions to prevent contamination of product when the organization's premises are not suitable for preventing microbial contamination. This implies a proactive approach to facility design, environmental monitoring, and personnel practices. The updated standard also strengthened requirements for the control of contamination during the manufacturing of non-sterile medical devices that require microbial contamination control, necessitating robust environmental monitoring programs and documented procedures for managing contamination risks. The core principle is to ensure that the medical device is free from harmful levels of microbial contamination throughout its life cycle, aligning with regulatory expectations such as those found in FDA's Quality System Regulation, 21 CFR Part 820, and the EU Medical Device Regulation, MDR. Question 8. Considering a medical device manufacturer transitioning their quality management system to ISO 13485, 2016, which proactive measure would most effectively address the standard's increased emphasis on integrating regulatory requirements and risk management across the entire product lifecycle, as detailed in clauses such as 4.1 and 7.1 Option A. Increase the frequency of internal audits solely on production and process controls, believing this will indirectly cover the new regulatory and risk management stipulations. Option B. Implement a new software validation protocol for all existing device software, assuming this single action will satisfy the enhanced requirements for software in the 2016 version. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive gap analysis of current QMS processes against ISO 13485-2016, focusing on the systematic integration of applicable regulatory requirements and the consistent application of risk management principles throughout all product lifecycle stages. Option D. Update the company's quality manual to reflect the new standard structure and terminology without altering existing operational procedures or risk assessment methodologies. Correct answer is C. Conduct a comprehensive gap analysis of current QMS processes against ISO 13485-2016, focusing on the systematic integration of applicable regulatory requirements and the consistent application of risk management principles throughout all product lifecycle stages. Explanation. The transition from an older quality management system, standard to ISO 13485-2016, necessitates a thorough review of existing processes against the updated requirements. Specifically, the 2016 version places a greater emphasis on risk management throughout the product lifecycle, integration of regulatory requirements into the QMS, and enhanced requirements for software validation and traceability. When a medical device manufacturer is transitioning, they must identify any gaps between their current practices and the new standard. This involves analyzing how their existing design and development controls, production and process controls, and post-market surveillance activities align with the heightened expectations of ISO 13485-2016, particularly concerning the application of risk management principles as mandated by Clause 7.1. This clause requires risk management to be applied to all stages of the product lifecycle, from concept to decommissioning. Furthermore, the standard's integration of regulatory requirements, Clause 4.1a, means that the QMS must actively incorporate and maintain compliance with applicable medical device regulations, such as the EU Medical Device Regulation, MDR, or the U.S. Food and Drug Administration's, FDA Quality System Regulation, 21 CFR Part 820, ensuring that the QMS is not merely a standalone system, but is intrinsically linked to the legal and regulatory framework governing the devices. The correct approach involves a systematic gap analysis, updating documentation, implementing revised procedures, and conducting comprehensive training for personnel, all while ensuring that the core principles of quality and patient safety remain paramount. Question 9. When transitioning to ISO 13485-2016, a medical device manufacturer producing a novel implantable neurostimulator faces a challenge in demonstrating the robustness of their sterilization process. The regulatory landscape, particularly concerning patient safety and device efficacy post-implantation, necessitates a stringent approach to process validation. The manufacturer must ensure that their sterilization method not only achieves the required sterility assurance level, but also does not adversely affect the device's functional performance or material integrity over its intended lifespan, which specific requirement under the design and development clauses of ISO 13485-2016 most directly addresses the need for documented evidence that this sterilization process consistently delivers the intended results, and that any potential degradation due to the process is understood and controlled. Option A. The requirement for design and development outputs to be documented in a form that enables verification against design and development inputs. Option B. The obligation to establish and maintain a design history file that includes all records related to design changes and approvals. Option C. Validation of processes where the resulting output cannot be verified by subsequent monitoring or measurement, requiring revalidation if changes occur. Option D. The stipulation that design and development reviews must include an evaluation of the suitability of materials used in the device. The correct answer is C. Validation of processes where the resulting output cannot be verified by subsequent monitoring or measurement, requiring revalidation if changes occur. Explanation. The transition to ISO 13485-2016 requires a thorough review of the design and development process to ensure compliance with the updated requirements, particularly concerning the validation of processes. According to ISO 13485-2016, specifically Clause 7.3.6, validation of processes for sterile products and processes where deficiencies may only become apparent after the product is in use must be conducted. This validation needs to confirm that the processes consistently produce results meeting predetermined specifications. The standard also mandates that records of validation and evidence of conformity to the validation requirements are maintained as part of the design history file. The question focuses on the validation aspect of the design and development process, which is a critical transition point from older standards or practices that might not have emphasized this level of rigor for all applicable processes. The core of the transition involves ensuring that all processes requiring validation, as identified through risk management and product requirements, have undergone and documented validation according to the updated clauses, including the maintenance of comprehensive records demonstrating the validation's effectiveness and the product's conformity to design and development outputs. Question 10. When a medical device manufacturer discovers a significant usability issue during the design verification phase that could lead to patient harm due to incorrect operation by the intended user in the specified environment, what is the most appropriate immediate action according to the principles of ISO 13485-2016, considering the need to manage risks associated with use error? Option A. Defer the resolution of the usability issue until after the device has been launched, to gather real-world post-market data for a more comprehensive analysis. Option B. Initiate a design change to mitigate the identified use-related risk and subsequently revalidate the affected design elements. Option C. Focus solely on addressing the functional performance specifications of the device, as usability is a separate concern outside the scope of design verification. Option D. Document the usability issue in the risk management file and proceed with production, relying on user training to compensate for the deficiency. The correct answer is B. Initiate a design change to mitigate the identified use-related risk and subsequently revalidate the affected design elements. Explanation. The transition to ISO 13485-2016 introduced a more explicit emphasis on usability engineering, aligning with regulatory expectations such as those from the FDA and European Union directives, while the 2003 version alluded to usability through design controls and risk management. The 2016 revision specifically mandates the establishment, implementation, and maintenance of a process for usability engineering for medical devices. This process must ensure that the device can be used as intended by the intended users in the intended use environment, thereby reducing risks associated with use error. Key activities within this process include defining user needs, identifying user profiles, specifying use environments, and conducting usability validation. The goal is to proactively identify and mitigate potential use-related hazards before a device is released to the market. This is distinct from simply verifying that the device meets its specifications. Usability focuses on the human-device interaction and its impact on patient safety and device effectiveness. Therefore, the most appropriate action for a manufacturer to take when encountering a usability issue during the design and development phase, particularly one that affects the safe and effective use of the device, is to initiate a design change to address the identified risk, which then requires revalidation to confirm the effectiveness of the implemented changes. This iterative process is fundamental to robust design controls and risk management, as outlined in ISO 13485-2016 and relevant medical device regulations. Question 11. Consider a scenario where a medical device manufacturer discovers that a batch of implantable neurostimulator leads has exhibited a statistically significant increase in insulation breakdown during routine post-market surveillance testing, a deviation not previously encountered. The organization has a documented process for nonconformity control and corrective action, as per ISO 13485-2016. Which of the following investigative actions is most critical for determining the fundamental reason for this insulation breakdown and preventing its recurrence, aligning with the principles of a robust quality management system and regulatory expectations for medical devices? Option A. Immediately initiating a voluntary recall of all leads manufactured within the last 2 years to mitigate potential patient risk, without fully completing a root cause analysis. Option B. Conducting a customer satisfaction survey to gauge the perceived impact of the insulation breakdown on end users, assuming the issue is primarily user-related. Option C. Focusing solely on updating the product labeling to include a warning about potential insulation degradation, without investigating the underlying manufacturing or material causes. Option D. Systematically analyzing manufacturing process parameters, raw material lot traceability, and environmental conditions at the time of lead insulation extrusion and curing, alongside a review of the testing methodology's suitability for detecting such failures. The correct answer is D. Systematically analyzing manufacturing process parameters, raw material lot traceability, and environmental conditions at the time of lead insulation extrusion and curing, alongside a review of the testing methodology's suitability for detecting such failures. Explanation: the investigation of nonconformities under ISO 13485-2016 necessitates a thorough root cause analysis to prevent recurrence. When a nonconforming product, such as a batch of sterile surgical sutures exhibiting partial seal integrity failures, is identified, the organization must establish a documented procedure for handling such situations. This procedure should encompass identification, documentation, evaluation, segregation, and disposition of the nonconforming product. Crucially, the investigation must determine the root cause of the nonconformity. For the suture example, potential root causes could include issues with the sealing equipment calibration, variations in the packaging material's barrier properties, or improper storage conditions prior to sealing. The corrective action taken must be proportionate to the risk associated with the nonconformity. In this case, a comprehensive investigation would involve reviewing sealing parameters, material certificates of analysis, environmental monitoring data for the sealing area, and potentially conducting further testing on retained samples. The effectiveness of any corrective action, such as recalibrating sealing machinery or changing supplier specifications for the packaging film, must also be verified. The standard emphasizes that the investigation should also consider regulatory requirements, such as those mandated by the FDA's Quality System Regulation, 21 CFR Part 820, or the EU Medical Device Regulation, MDR, which require robust processes for handling nonconformities and implementing corrective and preventive actions. The ultimate goal is to ensure that the nonconformity does not recur, thereby maintaining product safety and efficacy. Therefore, the primary objective of the investigation process is to identify and address the fundamental reasons for the nonconformity's existence. Question 12. Consider a medical device manufacturer that has received multiple customer complaints regarding the interpretation of results from their new blood glucose monitoring system, citing ambiguous graphical indicators on the display. According to ISO 13485-2016, what is the most appropriate systematic approach to address this feedback and ensure product improvement? Option A. Conduct a thorough root cause analysis of the ambiguous graphical indicators, implement design changes to clarify the display, and validate the effectiveness of these changes through user testing and documentation review. Option B. Issue a customer advisory notice to all users explaining the potential for misinterpretation and providing supplementary guidance on interpreting the graphical indicators. Option C. Retrain the customer support team to better handle inquiries related to the ambiguous graphical indicators and document these training sessions. Option D. Update the product's user manual with additional explanatory notes for the ambiguous graphical indicators and inform customers of the update. The correct answer is A. Conduct a thorough root cause analysis of the ambiguous graphical indicators, implement design changes to clarify the display, and validate the effectiveness of these changes through user testing and documentation review. Explanation: the transition to ISO 13485-2016 mandates a proactive approach to integrating customer feedback for continuous improvement. Clause 8.2.1, specifically concerning feedback from users and post-market surveillance, requires organizations to establish processes for collecting, reviewing, and acting upon this information. When customer feedback identifies a recurring issue with the usability of a novel diagnostic device, particularly one that could impact patient safety or regulatory compliance, e.g., potential misinterpretation of results due to unclear interface elements. The organization must initiate a corrective action process as outlined in Clause 8.5.2. This involves identifying the root cause of the usability issue, determining appropriate actions to prevent recurrence, implementing these actions, and verifying their effectiveness. Simply acknowledging the feedback or making minor, superficial adjustments without a systemic analysis and verification would not meet the requirements. The feedback must be analyzed for trends and potential systemic failures, and the resulting improvements should be validated to ensure they effectively address the identified problem and do not introduce new risks. This aligns with the overall quality management system objective of ensuring product conformity and customer satisfaction. The process requires documented evidence of the feedback, the analysis performed, the actions taken, and the verification of effectiveness, all of which are fundamental to maintaining compliance with ISO 13485/2016 and relevant regulatory frameworks like the EU Medical Device Regulation, MDR, or FDA regulations. Question 13. When transitioning a medical device manufacturer's quality management system to ISO 13485/2016, which fundamental approach to determining product-related requirements most effectively integrates customer needs with evolving statutory and regulatory mandates, such as those outlined in the EU MDR or FDA 21 CFR Part 820, to ensure ongoing compliance and product safety. Option A. Implementing a system where product requirements are primarily derived from competitor product analyses and historical internal documentation without explicit external regulatory input. Option B. Relying solely on the sales department to gather initial customer specifications and then updating the quality manual when new regulatory standards are published. Option C. Establishing a cross-functional team responsible for continuously monitoring regulatory updates and customer feedback, translating these into documented product requirements that are validated through risk management activities and design verification. Option D. Delegating the responsibility for determining product requirements to individual product development engineers, who are expected to independently research and apply all relevant regulations. The correct answer is C. Establishing a cross-functional team responsible for continuously monitoring regulatory updates and customer feedback, translating these into documented product requirements that are validated through risk management activities and design verification. Explanation. The transition from an older quality management system standard to ISO 13485/2016 involves a thorough review and update of an organization's processes, particularly concerning the determination of requirements related to the product. ISO 13485/2016, in Clause 7.1, emphasizes that organizations must determine requirements related to the product, including statutory and regulatory requirements. This determination is not a static event, but an ongoing process that must be integrated into the design and development phases, as well as for existing products. It requires a systematic approach that considers customer needs, intended use, performance requirements, and applicable regulatory frameworks such as the EU Medical Device Regulation, MDR, or the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, FDA, regulations. The process involves identifying all relevant requirements, documenting them, and ensuring they are communicated and understood throughout the organization. This includes not only explicit customer requirements, but also implicit ones and those mandated by governing bodies. The effectiveness of this process directly impacts the safety and performance of the medical device. Question 14. A medical device manufacturer is transitioning to ISO 13485/2016 and must refine its supplier management process for critical components. The organization sources a specialized, biocompatible polymer used in the primary containment of a Class Roman II implantable device. This polymer's properties are directly linked to the device's long-term performance and patient safety. Considering the stringent regulatory expectations under frameworks like the EU MDR for implantable devices, which of the following approaches best addresses the inherent risks associated with this supplier's ability to consistently meet the stringent material specifications and quality requirements? Option A. Rely solely on the supplier's self-declaration of conformity to ISO 2016, supplemented by periodic review of their product certificates for the polymer batch. Option B. Implement a comprehensive supplier risk assessment that evaluates the supplier's manufacturing processes, quality management system, historical performance data, and regulatory compliance, leading to tailored controls and verification activities proportional to the identified risk. Option C. Conduct an initial audit of the supplier's facility and then establish a standard inspection plan for all incoming polymer batches, regardless of criticality. Option D. Focus primarily on the cost-effectiveness of the polymer and negotiate contractual terms that penalize late deliveries, assuming quality will be maintained through competitive pressure. The correct answer is B. Implement a comprehensive supplier risk assessment that evaluates the supplier's manufacturing processes, quality management system, historical performance data, and regulatory compliance, leading to tailored controls and verification activities proportional to the identified risk. Explanation: the transition to ISO 13485/2016 necessitates a robust approach to managing risks associated with outsourced processes and suppliers, especially those critical to product safety and regulatory compliance. A key aspect is the systematic identification and evaluation of potential risks stemming from supplier performance, their own quality systems, and their ability to consistently meet specified requirements. This evaluation should inform the depth and nature of controls applied to each supplier. For a supplier providing a component that is integral to the sterile barrier system of a Class Roman III implantable device, the risk assessment would naturally be more stringent than for a supplier of standard office supplies. Regulatory requirements, such as those outlined in the EU Medical Device Regulation, MDR, or FDA regulations, also mandate controls over the supply chain to ensure the safety and performance of medical devices. Therefore, the most effective approach to mitigate supplier-related risks in this context involves a multifaceted strategy that includes a thorough risk assessment of the supplier's processes and their impact on the final device, coupled with appropriate controls and ongoing monitoring. This approach ensures that the organization maintains oversight and can demonstrate compliance with regulatory expectations concerning the entire life cycle of the medical device, from component sourcing to final product. Question 15. A medical device manufacturer is transitioning its quality management system to ISO 13485/2016 and is developing new software for a diagnostic imaging system. The software design specification document is being drafted. Which element within this specification is most critical for demonstrating the software's fitness for its intended purpose and for satisfying regulatory expectations regarding software validation? Option A. A broad overview of the intended use of the diagnostic imaging system and a list of potential user roles without specific functional requirements or validation strategies. Option B. A summary of the software's performance metrics, such as processing speed and memory usage, without explicit linkage to the intended use or validation objectives. Option C. A complete history of all software development team members' training records related to general programming, best practices, and cybersecurity awareness. Option D. A detailed description of the software architecture and modular components, including interfaces and data flow diagrams, alongside a comprehensive plan for software verification and validation activities, including test cases and acceptance criteria. Correct answer is D. A detailed description of the software architecture and modular components, including interfaces and data flow diagrams, alongside a comprehensive plan for software verification and validation activities, including test cases and acceptance criteria. Explanation: the transition to ISO 13485/2016 mandates a rigorous approach to software validation, particularly concerning design specifications. When developing or updating software for a medical device, the design specification must comprehensively detail all functional and performance requirements. This includes defining the intended use, operating environment, user interface characteristics, data handling protocols, and any specific safety features. Crucially, the specification must also outline the validation methods and criteria to be employed to ensure the software meets these requirements under intended use conditions. This aligns with the standard's emphasis on ensuring that processes applied to software development are appropriate and that the resulting software is fit for its intended purpose, thereby mitigating risks associated with medical device use. The regulatory landscape, such as the U.S. FDA's Quality System Regulation, 21 CFR Part 820, and European Medical Device Regulation, MDR, also places significant importance on validated software, making a robust design specification a foundational element for compliance and patient safety. The specification serves as the benchmark against which the software's performance and safety are ultimately verified and validated. Question 16. When transitioning a medical device company's quality management system to ISO 13485, 2016, what is the most critical element to define within the validation plan for software used in design and development processes to ensure conformity with the updated standards requirements, particularly concerning Clause 7? 5. 1. Option A. A detailed description of the software's intended use and the specific validation activities to confirm its consistent performance under those conditions, including clearly defined acceptance criteria. Option B. A contractual agreement with the software vendor outlining their responsibilities for ongoing maintenance and bug fixes without specific validation requirements for updates. Option C. A complete history of all previous validation efforts for the software, regardless of their relevance to the current system configuration. Option D. A comprehensive list of all hardware configurations on which the software will be installed and operated during its life cycle. Correct answer is A. A detailed description of the software's intended use and the specific validation activities to confirm its consistent performance under those conditions, including clearly defined acceptance criteria. Explanation. The transition from ISO 13485, 2003 to ISO 13485, 2016 mandates a re-evaluation of validation activities, particularly concerning software used in quality management systems. Clause 7. 5. 1 of ISO 13485, 2016, which addresses control of production and service provision, requires that where processes needed to ensure product conformity have not been previously verified, they shall be validated. For software, this validation must confirm that the software performs as intended under its intended use conditions. The planning for this validation is critical and must be documented. A robust validation plan for software, especially in the context of transitioning to the 2016 standard, should outline the scope of the software's intended use, the specific validation activities to be performed, the criteria for successful validation, acceptance criteria, the resources required, and the responsibilities of personnel involved. It should also consider the intended use of the software within the overall quality management system, such as its role in design and development, production, or post-market surveillance. The plan must be comprehensive enough to ensure that the software consistently meets its specified requirements, and that any changes or updates are also subject to appropriate validation. This proactive approach to validation planning is essential for maintaining compliance with regulatory requirements and ensuring the reliability of the quality management system. The ISO 13485, 2016 standard emphasizes a risk-based approach, meaning the extent and rigor of validation should be proportionate to the risks associated with the software's failure to perform as intended. Therefore, a validation plan must clearly define how risks will be identified and mitigated throughout the validation process. Question 17. Assessment of a medical device manufacturer's transition to ISO 13485, 2016 reveals a gap in fostering a pervasive culture of quality. The organization has implemented new procedures and updated documentation, but employee engagement with quality initiatives remains superficial. Which strategic approach is most likely to cultivate a deeply embedded culture of quality, ensuring sustained compliance and proactive risk management in line with regulatory expectations such as those found in the EU MDR? Option A. Implementing a comprehensive leadership development program focused on quality principles and empowering middle management to champion quality objectives, coupled with transparent communication of quality performance metrics and the impact of quality on patient safety. Option B. Conducting mandatory, one-time quality awareness training sessions for all personnel, followed by periodic internal audits to verify adherence to documented procedures. Option C. Relying solely on the quality management system's corrective action process to identify and rectify quality deficiencies, assuming that procedural adherence will naturally foster a quality-centric mindset. Option D. Establishing a dedicated quality improvement task force, composed of senior management and quality personnel, to identify and address quality-related issues, with limited direct involvement from operational staff. Correct answer is A. Implementing a comprehensive leadership development program focused on quality principles and empowering middle management to champion quality objectives, coupled with transparent communication of quality performance metrics and the impact of quality on patient safety. Explanation: the transition from ISO 13485, 2003 to ISO 13485, 2016 mandates a proactive approach to embedding quality principles throughout an organization. Promoting a culture of quality is not merely a directive, but a fundamental shift in organizational mindset and behavior, crucial for ensuring the safety and efficacy of medical devices. This involves leadership commitment, clear communication of quality objectives, and empowering employees at all levels to take ownership of quality processes. It necessitates the establishment of mechanisms for continuous improvement, such as robust feedback loops from customers and regulatory bodies, and the integration of quality considerations into all business functions, from research and development to post-market surveillance. A key aspect is fostering an environment where quality is viewed as everyone's responsibility, not solely the domain of a dedicated quality department. This includes providing adequate training, recognizing quality contributions, and ensuring that quality is a primary consideration in decision-making, thereby aligning with the overarching goal of patient safety and regulatory compliance. The 2016 revision, for instance, places increased emphasis on risk management throughout the product lifecycle and supply chain, which requires a deeply ingrained quality culture to be effectively implemented. This culture supports the identification and mitigation of risks, ensuring that quality is built into the device and its processes from conception to obsolescence, and is essential for navigating the evolving regulatory landscape, including requirements from regulations like the EU Medical Device Regulation, MDR. Question 18. An established medical device manufacturer, currently certified to an older version of ISO 13485, is undertaking a transition to ISO 13485, 2016. Their existing quality management system includes a well-defined process for handling customer complaints, but lacks a formalized risk assessment procedure for the design and development of new product features, relying instead on ad hoc engineering reviews. Furthermore, their supplier qualification process is based on historical relationships rather than documented objective evidence of compliance with quality standards. Considering the specific enhancements in ISO 13485, 2016, particularly concerning risk management and the integration of regulatory requirements, which of the following actions would represent the most critical initial step in their transition process to ensure robust compliance? Option A. Implementing a mandatory training program for all R&D personnel on advanced statistical process control techniques relevant to medical device manufacturing. Option B. Conducting a comprehensive gap analysis of the current quality management system against all clauses of ISO 13485, 2016, with a particular focus on risk management integration and updated design control requirements. Option C. Immediately revising the customer complaint handling procedure to incorporate new reporting metrics mandated by emerging international medical device regulations. Option D. Developing a new supplier audit program based on a recent industry best practice guide for medical device component sourcing. Correct answer is B. Conducting a comprehensive gap analysis of the current quality management system against all clauses of ISO 13485, 2016, with a particular focus on risk management integration and updated design control requirements. Explanation: the transition from an older quality management system standard to ISO 13485, 2016 necessitates a thorough review of all existing processes and documentation to ensure alignment with the updated requirements. Clause 4. 1. 1 of ISO 13485, 2016 emphasizes the need for an organization to establish, document, implement, maintain, and continually improve a quality management system in accordance with the standard and applicable regulatory requirements. Specifically, The standard requires the organization to determine the processes needed for the quality management system and their application throughout the organization, and to identify any processes needed due to the standard but not performed by the organization, and ensure their control. When transitioning, an organization must assess its current state against these requirements. For instance, if an organization previously relied on a supplier for a critical component without a formal supplier evaluation process, the transition would require implementing such a process to meet the standard's expectations for supplier control, Clause 7. 4. 1. Similarly, if risk management was handled informally, ISO 13485, 2016, Clause 7. 1. Mandates its integration into the QMS, including risk assessment for product realization processes and regulatory requirements. The focus on product realization, Clause 7, means that design and development controls, purchasing controls, production and service provision, and control of monitoring and measuring equipment must all be re-evaluated and potentially updated to reflect the specific requirements of the 2016 version, which places a greater emphasis on risk management throughout the product lifecycle. The regulatory context, such as the EU Medical Device Regulation, MDR, or the US FDA Quality System Regulation, 21 CFR Part 820, also plays a crucial role in shaping the QMS transition, as the QMS must ensure compliance with these external requirements. Therefore, a comprehensive gap analysis is the foundational step to identify areas needing modification to achieve compliance with ISO 13485, 2016. Question 19. Consider a medical device manufacturer producing sterile, implantable devices. The organization is transitioning to ISO 13485, 2016 and is reviewing its personnel competency management system. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the standard's requirements for determining and assessing competency, particularly concerning the impact on product quality and regulatory compliance? Option A. Conducting annual general awareness training on quality management principles for all staff and maintaining a record of attendance, assuming that a broad understanding of quality is sufficient for all roles. Option B. Implementing a competency framework that categorizes personnel based on their role's direct influence on device sterility and biocompatibility, with assessment methods tailored to verify specific technical skills and knowledge relevant to these critical parameters, and documenting the effectiveness of training against predefined performance metrics. Option C. Establishing a subjective performance review process where supervisors provide feedback on general work habits, without specific linkage to the technical requirements for ensuring product safety or compliance with ISO 13485, 2016 clauses related to competency. Option D. Relying solely on an individual's prior work experience and educational background as documented in their resume, without further assessment or verification of skills pertinent to their current medical device manufacturing responsibilities. The correct answer is B. Implementing a competency framework that categorizes personnel based on their role's direct influence on device sterility and biocompatibility, with assessment methods tailored to verify specific technical skills and knowledge relevant to these critical parameters, and documenting the effectiveness of training against predefined performance metrics. Explanation: ISO 13485, 2016, in Clause 6. 2. Mandates that an organization shall determine the necessary competence for personnel who affect product quality and shall provide training or take other actions to achieve the necessary competence and evaluate the effectiveness of the actions taken. The standard emphasizes that the determination of competence must consider the impact of the personnel's activities on product quality. This means that for roles directly involved in the design, manufacturing, or quality control of medical devices, the competency assessment must be rigorous and directly linked to the specific tasks and potential risks associated with those activities. For example, a technician calibrating a critical measurement instrument for a Class Roman III implantable device requires a demonstrably higher level of documented competency than an administrative assistant in the same organization. The effectiveness of training or other actions taken to achieve competence must be evaluated, and records of this evaluation must be maintained. This evaluation is crucial for ensuring that the personnel can consistently perform their duties in a manner that ensures the safety and performance of the medical device. The focus is on the impact on product quality, which necessitates a risk-based approach to competency assessment and development, aligning with the overall risk management principles inherent in medical device regulations and standards like ISO 14971. Regulatory requirements, such as those from the FDA E.g. 21 CFR Part 820, or the EU MDR, also implicitly or explicitly require demonstrable competence for personnel involved in the medical device lifecycle, reinforcing the importance of robust competency management systems under ISO 13485, 2016. Question 20. Consider a medical device manufacturer transitioning to ISO 13485, 2016, currently storing critical quality records, including design history files and complaint investigations, in a legacy paper-based system supplemented by basic file servers. To meet the enhanced requirements for record integrity, retrievability, and protection against loss or deterioration, which of the following strategies would most effectively align with the spirit and mandates of the ISO 13485, 2016 standard for document storage and retrieval? Option A. Implement a phased migration to a validated electronic document management system, EDMS, with robust backup, version control, and access logging, while establishing secure, environmentally controlled off-site storage for essential legacy paper records. Option B. Digitize all existing paper records into a cloud-based storage solution without formal validation of the system's integrity and retrieval capabilities, and discontinue paper storage entirely. Option C. Continue using the existing paper and file server system, but increase the frequency of manual backups to external hard drives and implement a more stringent daily filing protocol. Option D. Rely solely on the existing file servers for all digital records and implement a new policy requiring all paper records to be scanned and stored on individual employee workstations for easier personal access. Correct answer is A. Implement a phased migration to a validated electronic document management system, EDMS, with robust backup, version control, and access logging, while establishing secure, environmentally controlled off-site storage for essential legacy paper records. Explanation: the transition to ISO 13485, 2016 requires organizations to maintain robust systems for document control, including the storage and retrieval of records. The standard emphasizes the need for records to be readily identifiable, retrievable, and protected from damage, deterioration, or loss. This includes ensuring that records are stored in a manner that prevents unauthorized access and preserves their integrity throughout their retention period. While the standard does not mandate a specific technology or method for storage, it does require that the system implemented meets these objectives. Electronic systems, for instance, must have appropriate backup and archival procedures. Physical records need secure storage environments with controls for environmental factors like humidity and temperature, as well as protection against fire and water damage. The key is the ability to reliably access and use the records when needed for regulatory compliance, audits, or operational purposes, ensuring that the method of storage does not compromise the usability or authenticity of the information. This directly relates to the effectiveness of the quality management system in managing product realization and post-market surveillance activities, as well as demonstrating compliance with regulatory requirements. Question 21. A medical device manufacturer specializing in implantable prosthetics is transitioning to ISO 13485, 2016. Their existing process involves manual assembly in a cleanroom environment. Recent internal audits have identified a trend of slight particulate matter detected on finished devices during final inspection, despite adherence to standard cleanroom protocols. Considering the stringent cleanliness requirements for implantable devices and the updated ISO 13485, 2016 standard, what is the most critical aspect the quality management system must address to ensure compliance and mitigate risks related to product cleanliness in this scenario? Option A. Implementing a comprehensive validation program for all cleaning and sterilization processes, coupled with enhanced environmental monitoring and particulate testing throughout the assembly and packaging stages. Option B. Relying solely on the existing cleanroom classification and increasing the frequency of visual inspections of finished devices before packaging. Option C. Revising the risk management file to include potential particulate contamination as a minor risk and focusing on post-market surveillance to detect any adverse events. Option D. Updating the facility's air filtration system to a higher MERV rating and conducting a one-time training session for all assembly personnel on basic cleanroom etiquette. The correct answer is A. Implementing a comprehensive validation program for all cleaning and sterilization processes, coupled with enhanced environmental monitoring and particulate testing throughout the assembly and packaging stages. Explanation: the transition from ISO 13485-2003 to ISO 13485-2016 introduced enhanced requirements regarding product cleanliness, particularly for medical devices that are sterile or have specific cleanliness requirements. Clause 7.5. 1 of ISO 13485-2016, titled Production and Service Provision, mandates that the organization must ensure that the product is clean before it is packaged. This extends to controlling the environment where products are handled, processed, and packaged to prevent contamination. The standard emphasizes the need for documented procedures to maintain cleanliness and prevent contamination, especially for products where cleanliness is critical to safety and performance. This includes considerations for personnel hygiene, facility design, airflow, and the materials used in manufacturing and packaging. The organization must validate cleaning processes and monitor their effectiveness. The focus is on proactive control and verification to ensure that the final product meets its intended cleanliness specifications, thereby mitigating risks associated with patient safety and device efficacy. Understanding the specific cleanliness requirements for a given medical device, as dictated by its intended use and regulatory classification, is paramount in establishing and maintaining appropriate controls throughout the production lifecycle. Question 22. A medical device manufacturer operating under ISO 13485-2016 is conducting a comprehensive review of its quality management system's effectiveness. The organization has gathered extensive data from post-market surveillance reports, customer complaints, internal audit findings, and supplier performance metrics. According to the standard, which of the following represents the most fundamental and encompassing approach to identifying opportunities for improvement within this context? Option A. Systematically analyzing aggregated data from all feedback channels, process monitoring, product conformity, and audit results to identify trends and root causes. Option B. Focusing solely on the analysis of customer complaints as the primary indicator of system deficiencies and areas for enhancement. Option C. Implementing corrective actions based on immediate nonconformities without a broader analysis of underlying systemic factors. Option D. Conducting ad hoc brainstorming sessions with key personnel whenever a significant issue is identified to generate potential solutions. The correct answer is A. Systematically analyzing aggregated data from all feedback channels, process monitoring, product conformity, and audit results to identify trends and root causes. Explanation: ISO 13485-2016, in its pursuit of continuous improvement for medical device manufacturers, emphasizes proactive identification of opportunities. This involves leveraging various data sources to drive enhancements in product safety, performance, and regulatory compliance. Clause 10.3. Improvement mandates that the organization shall determine and select opportunities for improvements and implement any resulting action to meet customer and regulatory requirements. This is intrinsically linked to the feedback mechanisms outlined in Clause 8. 2. 1. Customer feedback, and the monitoring and measurement activities detailed in Clause 8. 2. Analysis of data, Clause 8. 4. Is a critical process that consolidates information from these sources. Specifically, the analysis of data derived from customer feedback, process performance, product conformity, and audits provides the foundation for identifying systemic issues and potential areas for enhancement. The effectiveness of a quality management system is directly proportional to its ability to translate these data-driven insights into tangible improvements. Therefore, a robust system for analyzing all available data, including but not limited to post-market surveillance, complaint trends, internal audit findings, and supplier performance, is essential for identifying and prioritizing improvement opportunities. This proactive approach aligns with the overarching goal of ensuring the safety and effectiveness of medical devices throughout their life cycle, thereby fulfilling regulatory obligations and enhancing customer satisfaction. Question 23. Consider a scenario where a batch of sterile implantable bone screws manufactured by MedTech Innovations is found to have a breach in its primary packaging during routine in-process inspection, raising concerns about potential microbial contamination. According to the principles of ISO 13485-2016, for the control of contaminated or potentially contaminated product, what is the immediate and most critical action the organization must undertake to prevent adverse patient outcomes and regulatory noncompliance? Option A. Document the packaging breach in the batch record and allow the product to proceed to the next stage of manufacturing, pending a final release decision at the end of the process. Option B. Proceed with sterilization of the remaining product in the batch, assuming the packaging breach was an isolated incident and sterilization will rectify any potential contamination. Option C. Initiate a voluntary recall of all previously distributed product from the affected manufacturing period to ensure patient safety, regardless of the specific batch identified. Option D. Immediately segregate the affected batch of bone screws and implement a hold, followed by a documented evaluation of the nonconformity to determine appropriate disposition. The correct answer is D. Immediately segregate the affected batch of bone screws and implement a hold, followed by a documented evaluation of the nonconformity to determine appropriate disposition. Explanation: the core principle behind controlling contaminated or potentially contaminated product in ISO 13485-2016, particularly concerning sections like 7.5.1 Control of Production and Service Provision, and 8.2.4 Control of Nonconforming Product, is to prevent its unintended use or distribution. When a medical device or its components are identified as contaminated or potentially contaminated, the organization must establish procedures to ensure that such product is segregated and clearly identified. This segregation prevents accidental mixing with conforming product. Furthermore, the product must be handled in a manner that prevents further contamination or degradation of its quality. The decision regarding the disposition of this product, e.g., rework, scrap, or reevaluation, must be based on a thorough risk assessment and documented evidence. This process aligns with the overarching requirement to ensure that only safe and effective medical devices reach the market, adhering to regulatory expectations such as those outlined by the FDA's Quality System Regulation, 21 CFR Part 820, and equivalent international regulations, which mandate control over materials and finished devices that do not conform to specifications. The emphasis is on a systematic approach to identify, segregate, evaluate, and dispose of non-conforming product to mitigate risks to patient safety and product efficacy. Question 24. Consider a medical device manufacturer developing a novel implantable sensor. During the design and development phase, the engineering team conducts extensive bench testing on a series of prototypes to confirm that the sensor's electrical output accurately reflects the physiological parameters it is designed to measure under a range of simulated environmental conditions. This testing involves comparing the sensor's readings against calibrated reference instruments. Which phase of the design and development process does this activity primarily fall under, and what is its fundamental objective according to ISO 13485-2016? Option A. Validation, to confirm that the finished product fulfills user needs and intended uses. Option B. Design transfer, to ensure that the design is correctly translated into production processes and specifications. Option C. Design review, to evaluate the design at plan stages to ensure it meets user needs and regulatory requirements. Option D. Verification, to confirm that the design and development outputs meet the specified design and development inputs. The correct answer is D. Verification, to confirm that the design and development outputs meet the specified design and development inputs. Explanation: ISO 13485-2016 emphasizes that design and development verification activities must confirm that the design and development outputs meet the design and development inputs. This is a critical step in ensuring that the device functions as intended and meets user needs and regulatory requirements. Verification involves activities such as technical evaluations, prototype testing, and comparative analysis against existing designs or benchmarks. The goal is to detect design errors before the design is released for validation. Validation, on the other hand, confirms that the device meets user needs and intended uses under actual or simulated use conditions. Therefore, verification focuses on the design itself, while validation focuses on the end user and intended application. The transition to ISO 13485, 2016 requires organizations to maintain robust records of all verification activities, including the methods used, the results obtained, and the individuals who performed the verification. This documentation is crucial for demonstrating compliance and for future design changes or audits. A key aspect of verification is ensuring that the design inputs, such as performance requirements, safety standards, e.g., IEC 60601 series for electrical medical equipment, and regulatory requirements, e.g., FDA 21 CFR Part 820, EU MDR 2017/745, are adequately addressed by the design outputs. The verification process should be planned and documented in the design and development plan. Question 25. An organization specializing in sterile implantable devices is transitioning to ISO 13485/2016. They utilize a third-party logistics provider for warehousing and onward shipping to healthcare facilities. Which aspect of their distribution process requires the most significant reevaluation and documentation update to comply with the updated standards emphasis on maintaining product integrity during transit and storage? Option A. Implementing a new customer relationship management system to track all outgoing shipments and provide real-time updates to healthcare providers regarding delivery schedules. Option B. Developing a comprehensive marketing strategy to highlight the company's adherence to the latest ISO 13485/2016 requirements for all stakeholders involved in the distribution chain. Option C. Conducting a detailed cost-benefit analysis of outsourcing distribution versus bringing it in-house to optimize operational efficiency and reduce overall supply chain expenses. Option D. Establishing documented procedures to monitor and control environmental conditions, e.g., temperature, humidity, at the third-party logistics provider's facility and during transportation, ensuring these conditions are validated and recorded to maintain the sterility and efficacy of the implantable devices. The correct answer is D. Establishing documented procedures to monitor and control environmental conditions, e.g., temperature, humidity, at the third-party logistics provider's facility and during transportation, ensuring these conditions are validated and recorded to maintain the sterility and efficacy of the implantable devices. Explanation: the transition from ISO 13485/2003 to ISO 13485/2016 introduced several refinements, particularly concerning the responsibilities and processes related to the distribution of medical devices. Clause 7.5.1. Production and Service Provision, as updated in the 2016 version, mandates that organizations must establish and maintain documented procedures for the identification and traceability of product, including during distribution. This extends to ensuring that devices remain within specified storage and transportation conditions that maintain product quality and safety. Specifically, the standard requires that if the integrity of the medical device can be affected by storage or transportation conditions, documented procedures must be established and maintained to control these conditions. This includes monitoring, documenting, and, where necessary, validating the environmental conditions. Furthermore, the organization must ensure that any outsourced activities related to distribution, such as warehousing or third-party logistics, are controlled and do not adversely affect the quality of the medical device. The updated standard emphasizes the need for robust controls over the entire supply chain, including post-market activities. The regulatory landscape, such as the EU Medical Device Regulation, MDR, or FDA regulations in the US, also imposes stringent requirements on the distribution of medical devices, including the need for proper storage, handling, and transport to maintain sterility, temperature control, or other critical attributes. Therefore, the primary focus for an organization transitioning to ISO 13485/2016 regarding distribution is to ensure that documented procedures are in place to maintain the device's quality and safety throughout its distribution lifecycle, including environmental controls and supplier management. Question 26. Considering the enhanced focus on regulatory compliance and risk management in ISO 13485-2016, how must top management demonstrate their commitment to establishing and maintaining the quality management system, particularly concerning the clear definition of roles, responsibilities, and authorities for all personnel involved in meeting product requirements and regulatory obligations? Option A. By delegating all QMS responsibilities to a single quality manager, who is then solely accountable for all aspects of compliance and communication. Option B. By ensuring the quality policy and objectives are established, and that relevant roles, responsibilities, and authorities are defined and communicated throughout the organization to support the QMS and regulatory compliance. Option C. By focusing solely on product realization processes, and assuming that departmental managers will independently manage their respective QMS responsibilities without explicit top management oversight. Option D. By implementing a comprehensive training program that covers general quality principles but does not specifically address individual responsibilities for regulatory adherence. The correct answer is B. By ensuring the quality policy and objectives are established, and that relevant roles, responsibilities, and authorities are defined and communicated throughout the organization to support the QMS and regulatory compliance. Explanation. The transition to ISO 13485-2016 from earlier versions, or even from ISO 9001-2008, for organizations previously relying on that standard for medical device QMS, requires a thorough understanding of the revised requirements concerning management responsibility, authority, and communication. Clause 4. 1. One of ISO 13485-2016 emphasizes that top management must demonstrate commitment by ensuring the quality policy and objectives are established, ensuring the integration of QMS requirements into business processes, and communicating the importance of meeting customer and regulatory requirements. Crucially, the standard mandates the establishment and maintenance of the QMS, including the definition of roles, responsibilities, and authorities within the organization. This is not merely about having an organizational chart. It involves clearly assigning accountability for QMS processes and ensuring that personnel have the necessary authority to perform their duties and to identify and report nonconformities. Effective communication channels are vital, particularly for conveying changes in regulatory requirements and customer feedback to relevant personnel. The 2016 version strengthens the focus on risk management, Clause 7. 1, which inherently influences how responsibilities and authorities are defined, especially concerning product safety and regulatory compliance. For instance, a product development team lead responsible for ensuring design inputs meet regulatory requirements, e.g., MDR in the EU, FDA regulations in the US, must have the authority to halt development if critical safety or compliance issues arise. This authority must be clearly documented and understood. The question probes the foundational element of establishing and maintaining the QMS, specifically how management commitment translates into defined roles and communication structures that support compliance and continuous improvement, particularly in the context of evolving regulatory landscapes that ISO 13485-2016 aims to align with. The correct option reflects the direct mandate of management to ensure these aspects are addressed as part of their commitment to the QMS. Question 27. Consider a manufacturer of sterile, single-use surgical implants that require strict temperature and humidity control during storage and transit. Following the transition to ISO 13485-2016, which aspect of product preservation requires the most significant enhancement of existing documented procedures to ensure compliance with the standard's updated emphasis on risk management and lifecycle control, particularly in relation to potential environmental excursions. Option A. Establishing and validating a comprehensive system for continuous monitoring and recording of storage and transit environmental conditions, with automated alerts for deviations and documented corrective actions for any excursion, linked to a risk-based recall or quarantine procedure. Option B. Developing a detailed inventory management system that tracks the quantity of implants stored at various locations, without specific focus on the environmental conditions they are exposed to. Option C. Implementing a visual inspection protocol for all implant packaging to detect any signs of damage or compromised sterility before shipment, relying on trained personnel to identify potential issues. Option D. Creating a simple checklist for warehouse staff to periodically confirm that temperature and humidity readings are within acceptable ranges, without a formal system for logging or responding to out-of-specification conditions. The correct answer is A. Establishing and validating a comprehensive system for continuous monitoring and recording of storage and transit environmental conditions, with automated alerts for deviations and documented corrective actions for any excursion, linked to a risk-based recall or quarantine procedure. Explanation: the preservation of product, as detailed in ISO 13485/2016, encompasses measures to ensure that medical devices maintain their quality and intended performance throughout their life cycle, from manufacturing to final delivery. This includes controlling environmental conditions such as temperature, humidity, and light, which can degrade materials or compromise sterility. Proper handling and storage procedures are also critical to prevent physical damage or contamination, or devices requiring specific conditions, such as refrigerated or sterile products. The organization must establish and maintain documented procedures to monitor and control these parameters, ensuring that deviations are identified and addressed. This directly relates to the requirements for product identification and traceability, as well as the control of non-conforming product, ensuring that only product meeting specifications reaches the end user. The standard emphasizes that these controls must be appropriate to the device type and its intended use, and must be validated where necessary to confirm their effectiveness. The transition to ISO 13485/2016 requires a review of existing controls and the implementation of any new requirements, such as enhanced risk management integration into product preservation strategies, aligning with regulatory expectations like those found in the EU Medical Device Regulation, MDR, or FDA regulations, which also mandate robust product control throughout the supply chain. Question 28. Consider a manufacturer of a novel implantable neurostimulator transitioning to ISO 13485/2016. During the development phase, they conducted verification testing to confirm that the device's firmware correctly implemented the specified algorithms for pulse generation. Subsequently, they performed validation testing involving a cohort of patients under physician supervision to demonstrate that the device effectively alleviated symptoms as intended. Which aspect of the ISO 13485/2016 transition most significantly impacts the approach to documenting these specific verification and validation activities to satisfy regulatory expectations beyond the 2003 standard? Option A. A mandate to conduct post-market surveillance for all devices, requiring a complete revalidation of existing product designs. Option B. Enhanced requirements for integrating risk management throughout the product lifecycle and documenting how risk control measures are verified and validated. Option C. The introduction of specific performance metrics for all implantable devices that were not previously defined in the 2003 version. Option D. A requirement for independent third-party review of all validation protocols before their execution. The correct answer is B. Enhanced requirements for integrating risk management throughout the product lifecycle and documenting how risk control measures are verified and validated. Explanation: the transition from ISO 13485/2003 to ISO 13485/2016 introduced several key changes, particularly concerning the emphasis on risk management throughout the product lifecycle and enhanced regulatory considerations. Verification and validation activities are critical components of ensuring a medical device is safe and effective. Verification confirms that the output of a development stage meets the input requirements for that stage. Validation confirms that the finished product meets the user needs and intended uses. The 2016 version places a stronger emphasis on integrating risk management into these processes, aligning with regulatory expectations like those found in the EU Medical Device Regulation, MDR, or the US FDA Quality System Regulation. Specifically, the standard requires that when verification and validation activities are used to demonstrate conformity with requirements, the organization must document these activities and their results. This documentation should clearly show how the requirements were met. For validation, it is crucial to establish that the device performs as intended under actual or simulated use conditions. This often involves clinical evaluation or performance testing. The 2016 revision reinforces the need to consider all applicable regulatory requirements when planning and executing these activities, ensuring that the validation strategy is robust and addresses potential risks identified through the risk management process. The documentation of verification and validation must be comprehensive enough to provide objective evidence of conformity. Question 29. A manufacturer of Class EIB implantable devices, currently certified to ISO 13485, 2003, is planning its transition to ISO 13485, 2016, and simultaneously preparing for full compliance with the EU Medical Device Regulation, MDR. Which of the following actions would be the most critical QMS update to ensure alignment between the updated standard and the new regulatory framework, considering the MDR's emphasis on lifecycle management and post-market activities? Option A. Enhancing the QMS to integrate comprehensive risk management processes aligned with ISO 14971, 2019, and robust post-market surveillance, PMS, and vigilance reporting procedures that meet MDR Annex Roman III requirements. Option B. Implementing a new document control system that strictly adheres to the ISO 13485, 2016 requirement for documented information retention periods, without specific consideration for MDR reporting needs. Option C. Revising the supplier evaluation process to include only the standard's minimum requirements for outsourced processes, disregarding any specific MDR-related supplier obligations for critical components. Option D. Updating the quality manual to reflect the new clause numbering of ISO 13485, 2016, and conducting a gap analysis solely against the standard's clauses on management responsibility. The correct answer is A. Enhancing the QMS to integrate comprehensive risk management processes aligned with ISO 14971, 2019, and robust post-market surveillance, PMS, and vigilance reporting procedures that meet MDR Annex Roman III requirements. Explanation. The transition from ISO 13485, 2003 to ISO 13485, 2016 necessitated a thorough review and potential update of quality management system, QMS, documentation and processes to align with new requirements and clarifications. Specifically, the 2016 version introduced greater emphasis on risk management throughout the product lifecycle, clarified requirements for software validation, and addressed regulatory aspects more directly, particularly concerning the need to integrate QMS requirements with applicable regulatory frameworks such as the EU Medical Device Regulation, MDR. For manufacturer of Class EIB implantable medical devices, transitioning to ISO 13485, 2016, while also preparing for EU MDR compliance. A critical step involves ensuring that the QMS adequately supports the MDR's stringent requirements for clinical evaluation, post-market surveillance, and unique device identification, UDI. The MDR, which replaced the previous Medical Device Directives, MDD, mandates a more robust approach to conformity assessment, technical documentation, and ongoing vigilance. Therefore, the QMS must be updated to reflect these enhanced regulatory demands, ensuring that processes for risk management, ISO 14971, is often referenced here as a harmonized standard. Design controls, supplier management, and post-market activities are sufficiently detailed and implemented to meet both ISO 13485, 2016 and the MDR's expectations. This includes ensuring that the process for handling complaints and adverse events aligns with the MDR's reporting timelines and data requirements, and that the technical documentation dossier structure is compatible with MDR Annex Roman II and Roman III requirements. The focus is on demonstrating a proactive and compliant approach to device safety and performance throughout its entire lifecycle, as mandated by both standards and regulations. Question 30. Consider a medical device manufacturer transitioning to ISO 13485, 2016. The company has established a robust design and development process, but their current documentation practices for this process are fragmented across various project folders and departmental archives. To ensure compliance with the updated standard, what is the most critical action the organization must undertake regarding its design and development records? Option A. Focus solely on updating the design inputs and outputs to reflect the latest regulatory requirements, assuming that existing review and verification records are sufficient. Option B. Implement a new document control system that archives all design-related documents for a minimum of 15 years, irrespective of their direct relevance to a specific device's lifecycle. Option C. Develop a comprehensive risk management file that integrates all design and development activities, making the separate design and development file redundant. Option D. Consolidate all design and development records into a single, traceable design and development file that includes planning, inputs, outputs, reviews, verification, validation, and change control documentation. The correct answer is D. Consolidate all design and development records into a single, traceable design and development file that includes planning, inputs, outputs, reviews, verification, validation, and change control documentation. Explanation: the transition from ISO 13485-2003 to ISO 13485-2016 introduced several key changes, particularly concerning the design and development process and its associated documentation. A critical aspect of this transition was the emphasis on a more robust and integrated approach to design and development, ensuring that all stages are adequately controlled and documented. The standard requires the establishment, implementation, and maintenance of a design and development process that is appropriate to the medical device. This process must ensure that the device meets customer and regulatory requirements for the intended use. Crucially, the 2016 version strengthened the requirements for design and development planning, including the identification of stages, activities, review, verification, validation, and the responsibilities and authorities for the design and development process. Furthermore, the standard mandates the establishment of a design and development file, which serves as a compilation of records demonstrating that the design and development activities were performed in accordance with the plan and the requirements of the standard. This file is not merely a collection of documents, but a comprehensive record that provides traceability and evidence of compliance. The design and development outputs must be documented in a form that enables verification against the design and development inputs. The outputs must also contain or reference purchasing requirements and contain or reference the acceptance criteria. Additionally, the 2016 revision clarified the need to document the rationale for design and development changes and to ensure that these changes are verified and validated before implementation. Therefore, the compilation and maintenance of a comprehensive design and development file, encompassing all planning, inputs, outputs, reviews, verification, validation, and changes, is fundamental to demonstrating compliance with the updated ISO 13485-2016 requirements for design and development.